Hey everybody, this is Patrick Zielbauer from Infinity Futures. Thanks for taking a look at the YouTube channel here. I'm going to show you briefly how to add the correlation coefficient study to your chart. So a lot of questions we get about correlated markets. You can use overlays and put lines on top of each other and things to get a visual representation of things that are going up and down together or are operating in an inverse relationship. But those really are not statistical measures. So if you're into statistics, you probably know this term already, or if you remember it from geometry class, but the correlation coefficient is a statistical measure that is used to measure correlation between two lines. So here's how we can apply that to the charting. So first thing I'm going to do is open up an E-mini S&P chart, and then I'm going to open up an E-mini NASDAQ chart here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look for the correlation between these two products. So I have these two charts open. I'm going to tile them on the screen just so we can both see them next to each other. So we got the S&P here, the NASDAQ here. What we're going to do is we need to add the NASDAQ to the S&P chart so we have them on the same screen. The way to do that is I use a study called overlay bar because I want it to be in candle format. You could also do overlay single line if you prefer a line instead of a bar. But I'll just go to studies and then look for the study here called overlay bar and click add. In the settings section, we're going to pick what chart number are we going to overlay. Well, we're going to pick the NASDAQ chart because it's the only other one we've got in here, but this is where you choose. And by default, it's going to go into region 2, which is down here, like where a stochastic would go. So I push apply and you can see we get, that behavior. And of course, in the subgraphs, you can change the color settings if you don't like the way it looks, and all that can be adjusted, but we'll leave that for another time. One thing I do like to note here is that if you want to see the last price, you need to make sure that you check the value label here for the last price. We can see the price of the NASDAQ in the y-axis. So I'll just apply that. And so now we've got the NASDAQ sitting below the E-mini S&P. So now that we've got them both on one screen, we're going to add this study called the correlation coefficient. So we'll just go here and look for that. There it is. Add it. And in the settings section, it's really easy. You just need to pick the two inputs. So the first input is going to be the main price graph, which is the S&P, and I'm going to choose the last, which is the current price. And then the second input, we're going to choose the overlay that we've done, the NASDAQ, and also choose the last price. So it's the last price of the NASDAQ and the last price of the ES. See, by default, it's going to go in region 3. Let's just apply it, and you can see a line is generated. What I'm going to do here in subgraphs, just for the sake of visual simplicity, is increase the width of the line, thicken it up a little bit so we can see it better. So this is the correlation coefficient here. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with what the value means, a correlation coefficient of 1 means a direct relationship, like a one-to-one relationship. A correlation coefficient of 0 means no relationship. We would consider that in layman's terms to be like mishmash, nothing. And then -1 would be an inverse relationship. So something goes up, the other one goes down an equal amount. So when you see a value that's approaching 1, that means a market that is moving closer and closer in lockstep with what it's being compared to. And if you see a value approaching -1, that represents two lines that are moving further and further away from each other, more and more inverse. All right. Couple of examples. I have a pre-made chart file. If anybody wants a copy of it, you're welcome to have it. Right here, this is the S&P versus the NASDAQ. This is the S&P versus bonds. I have this on a daily time frame, so it's really kind of neat because you can see here, this is a negative 0.75. It was actually significantly below that, and you can see it makes sense. The market's this line means it's going more and more and more inverse, and you can see the market's going up and interest rates are going down. That's like a traditional textbook relationship. And then over here, I did the S&P and crude. For those of you who've seen a lot of our videos, you know we do closely watch the price of crude in relationship with the E-minis. And it's got its own, strange relationship from time to time. So definitely it's another suite of indicators that you can use to look for correlations. I don't think people make super short-term trading decisions on this, but if you are looking for trends over the long term, like on a daily time frame with the S&P and bonds, there's an example. It is a nice way to see, what markets are jiving with each other and which ones tend to be moving in opposite directions, and what impact that might have on your own decision making. That remains to be seen. But this is something that's come into play. If you have any questions on the process, let us know. Just contact your rep in our office. We'll leave the contact information here up on the page, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks.